I have received a delegation list from the department. We are told that the delegation is led, other than the minister and the deputy minister, by the DG, the DDG of Oceans and Coast, the DDG of Chemical Waste Management, the DDG of Biodiversity and Conservation, DDG of Fisheries Management, the Chief Director of Chemicals and Waste Economy Program and Coordination, the Chief Director of Hazardous Waste Management and Licensing, the Chief Director of Chemicals and Waste Policy Specialist Monitoring Services, the Chief Director of Integrated Waste Management, the Chief Director of Agriculture Economy, the Acting Director of Waste Economy and Sustainable Use, the Acting Chief Director of Ocean Economy, the Acting Chief Director of Specialist Monitoring Services, the Director of Marine Protection Services and Ocean Governance, Ms. Hani, the head in the office of the Deputy Minister, Ms. Maestri, the Chief Director, Governance and Executive Support, Mr. Mguni, the PLO in the office of the Minister, Mr. Nana, the PLO in the office of the Deputy Minister, Mr. Leon Tsinis, from the office of the Minister, Ms. Dibongo, office of the DDG, and Ms. Mbokoto from the office of the DDG. That is a delegation that we are told is here from the department. Welcome. May I check if there are apologies that have been deposited or registered at Chilega?
Yes, Chairperson, we have 3 apologies from Honorable Mtunu and Bryant. They are traveling to Cape Town. The last one is from Honorable Kappa. He's attending the meeting with the Agriculture Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Have you heard anything from Honorable Ganjo?
I spoke to her. She was not feeling well, but she said she will see if she'll be able to join or not.
Yeah, honorable members, maybe I must just inform you that as we were traveling yesterday from the public hearings in the Limpopo province, Honorable Kanjo was involved in an accident on her way to the airport, but she is well. I went to speak to her and see her. She just had strains. She was hit by the airbags, and I also made contact with the driver. He is also well. There was no blood stains or anything. The car is badly damaged. It's actually beyond repair, but both of them do not have broken bones and so on. But Honorable Kanjo had recommended that after being discharged around Kempton Park, as she flew to Cape Town, she was going to further consult to get a second opinion. I thought I must just inform the committee. Perhaps that could be what is informing her absence in this particular meeting. Do we have a quorum, Chilega?
Yes, Chairperson, we do.
Okay. Okay, can I then have a mover of the agenda?
I'll move. Chair, thank you.
I did not hear that.
I will move. Chair.
Is it Honorable Winkler?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Winkler. Can we get a seconder?
I second, Chairperson. Singh.
Thank you very much, Honorable Singh. Colleagues, today we are scheduled to have a briefing on medium-term achievements and the revision of targets on the timelines of various Pakisa programs led by the department. In the main, the ocean master plan, the aquaculture, the marine protection and governance, the chemical and waste, biodiversity and marine protected areas. It is my special honor and privilege to invite the minister, who is the leader of the department and the delegation, to give us an overview. Over to you, Honorable Minister Chrissy.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning to yourself, to all members of the committee, to Deputy Minister, and also to the DG and the team of colleagues who are representing our department this morning. Chairperson, you've asked for an overview in terms of the annual performance plan with regard to our own responsibilities in the areas that you have mentioned. And we have prepared a presentation. I suggest that we get straight into it. And obviously one can comment further once honourable members want to pose questions. Chair, you should just give guidance. My suggestion would be we do the whole presentation. There's a fair amount of detail, and then we take questions at the end rather than stopping after each section. What is your guidance in this regard?
My suspicion is that it's one document, Honorable Minister. Am I correct?
Yes, it's one document, but with different sections and different presenters. But if you are comfortable, then we will ask DG to lead it as one presentation.
I think that will be much smoother and it will save us time. Okay, let's follow that route.
Thank you, Chair. And let me take this opportunity to congratulate you on your appointment, and we hope we will enjoy a good working relationship with you as we had with your predecessor. DG, let me hand over to you so that you can call on relevant officials to lead the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning to the honorable members. Let me also take this opportunity to congratulate you, Chairperson. And as a department, we are definitely going to ensure that we work with yourself in terms of all the requirements of the committee, but also to wish Honorable Gansho speedily recovery, given what you've just reported to the meeting. Thank you so much, Chairperson. I have colleagues that are going to be leading the presentation. And my proposal is that we start with the oceans economy, if we can flag that presentation. The presentation is going to cover mainly issues around marines protection program. It will also talk to your marines protected areas. And then we will then get aquaculture. So the DDG Oceans and Coasts is going to make this presentation together with the DDG Fisheries management on the aquaculture. We will then move to the certain aspects around chemicals and waste with the various Pakisa programs, which are informing our national strategy, and the DDG of Chemicals and Waste Management will do that presentation. And we will therefore end, Chairperson and members, with the last presentation on biodiversity, and the DDG BNC will then take the members through that presentation. With your permission, Chairperson, can I therefore hand over to Dr. Fikizolo, who is then going to take us through this presentation and will immediately be followed by DDG Sue Middleton, who will cover the aquaculture part. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DDG, in that order.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, DG. Good morning to you, Chairperson. Good morning to the honorable members. Good morning to the Minister and to the Deputy Minister and to DG and colleagues. With your permission, Chair, I would kindly request that perhaps I switch off my video because I'm worried that I'm in an area where there is a load shedding at the moment, and then the resources in my batteries will be quickly run down. And if you with your permission, then I would proceed to switch it off and then start with the presentation, Chair. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. The presentation I am going to, I welcome the opportunity first. Thank you, Chair. I welcome the opportunity of presenting to you today and the portfolio committee, the medium achievements revision of targets and timelines of both the Oceans Economy Master Plan as well as Operation Phakisa, covering two areas, the marine protection and governance, which includes marine protected areas as well as marine spatial planning. And as the DG has indicated,
Dr. Fikizolo, we can't hear you.
Dealt with by my colleague, Ms. Sue.
Dr. Fikizolo.
Next slide, please.
Dr. Fikizolo.
Hi.
Dr. Fikizolo. Dr. Fikizolo. Dr. Fikizolo's network is really unstable. I doubt if any of us can hear anything.
Chairperson, can I suggest we take the waste presentation, and in the meantime, we will try and relocate Dr. Fikizolo.
I'm not sure whether it is my side, but the slides
Dr.
are not moving.
Fikizolo, we can't hear you. Can we just cut him out and go to the waste presentation, please, Chair?
Okay, let's go to waste.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, Honorable Minister, Honorable DM, DG, and colleagues. I will be taking you through the presentation on Operation Phakisa, Chemicals and Waste Economy. The emphasis there, National Waste Management Strategy, given that we did receive approval in 2020. I will also be highlighting how we have streamlined the strategy and make sure that programs are aligned to the implementation. Next slide. In the previous session, Honorable Chairperson and members, we had highlighted the 20 initiatives. I will be using that approach to take you through in terms of the progress thus far and our targets for the medium term. Next slide. In terms of the Phakisa aspiration, we are aiming to reduce the negative environmental and health impacts that are associated with waste and the risks that waste pose to the environment, including also the chemicals. We are aiming to increase commercialization of the circular economy and ensure that we create value from the resources that are currently discarded as waste. In our approach to waste economy, we are also fostering inclusive growth, ensuring that we have competitive producers that ensure that they manufacture sustainable products. Our key objectives are premised on increasing local utilization and beneficiation of waste resources. We are doing this through a creation of an enabling regulatory environment, including development of regulations such as exclusions, which I'll talk to later on. We are also ensuring that there are opportunities that are created from chemical and waste resources. We're talking about job creation, including SMME development and creation of new markets. We are also investing in research and development innovation, including intellectual property. We are also investing in infrastructure to enhance the utilization of local waste resources in terms of new products. And overall, in terms of the impact, we are aiming to reduce the waste that gets to landfill. We will be taking you through the different waste streams, some of which are industrial waste and some are generated from households and are managed through municipalities. Next slide. Our approach is informed by the National Waste Management Strategy. The strategy emanates from the Waste Act, and the current version of the strategy we did receive approval in 2020, and it is premised on 3 pillars. The first one being waste minimization. In terms of the first 5 years of this 2020 National Waste Management Strategy, we are aiming to divert 45% of waste away from landfill. And within the next 10 years, we are growing that to be 55%, and the 15-year vision is to increase that to 70%. The second pillar focuses on effective and sustainable waste services. With regard to this pillar, we are working with municipalities. Municipalities are the biggest contributor to this pillar, ensuring that all South Africans live in a clean communities with waste services that are well managed and financially sustainable. In this case, we're talking about refuse collection that is aligned to the National Domestic Waste Collection Standards. The third pillar talks to awareness, compliance, and enforcement. It is critical that we mainstream awareness and ensure that the culture of compliance is upheld, and we promote that through zero tolerance of pollution, litter, and illegal dumping. We have put in place regulatory controls, and we need to make sure that we enforce compliance monitoring and enforcement with the regulatory controls. The next slide. In terms of these 3 strategic pillars emanating from the National Waste Management Strategy, there are a number of waste streams, and trying to make sure that we streamline those initiatives according to the pillars. The waste streams that are focusing on waste minimization, the first part deals with bulk industrial waste. In this case, we know that ash mainly generated from electricity production is one of the key waste streams that We are aiming to beneficiate, and currently we are beneficiating. Slag and gypsum are also some of the industrial waste streams that we are managing as part of the waste minimization pillar. Also linked to some of the municipal waste services, now talking about wastewater, there is a sewage sludge that is produced from our wastewater treatment works, and also coming from abattoirs with regard to meat production. We also have the broader organic waste that is generated, and we are also having initiatives to divert that. Linked to that, we also have packaging waste. Most of our products that are on the market, they come in some sort of packaging. Packaging waste is also critical. And we want to ensure that in the manufacturing of the packaging products, we improve on the product design, ensuring that the packaging takes into account the end of life of the specific packaging product. And we also wanting to prevent pollution that arises from the waste that is generated. The second part, in terms of the waste initiatives that are linked to the second pillar of the National Waste Management Strategy, we have some of the organic waste that is generated from household, typical examples being the food waste that is generated from households. We also have construction and demolition waste that is also joining the municipal solid waste stream. We also include in the electrical and electronic equipment waste, the likes of computers and other fridges and other ICT related equipments. Packaging waste, paper, plastic, glass, and metal also. It's part of what is mainly generated as part of the municipal solid waste. Under compliance enforcement and awareness, it is critical that we do have the necessary regulatory tools, including norms and standards, as well as regulations to prevent pollution, litter, and illegal dumping. We're also working with the authorities, local municipalities through their bylaws, as well as the provinces, the respective environmental authorities. And also in the space, we do have international multilateral environmental agreements that also we need to increase compliance on. Visibility is critical, and hence the awareness as part of the Good Green Deeds program, as well as working on waste programs, are critical. Next slide. Going into the 17 initiatives that are part of the National Waste Management Strategy, I'll first start with those that are aligned to the 3 pillars and then move on to the chemicals initiatives. Ash, given that we do have a lot of ash being generated as part of electricity supply, we have worked with enterprises to ensure that most of that ash goes into alternate building material, going into bricks, and also some of the road construction. So it's one initiative where we are increasing the ash uptake. The second initiative is also linked to supporting research and development, in making sure that we are able to grow that commercialization and accelerate innovation. It's linked to the application of ash in agriculture, where ash is being used as a soil ameliorant. Also, when it comes to acid mine drainage, in terms of especially within the Mpumalanga area, we have seen where ash has been applied to treat acid mine drainage and also be part of rehabilitation of mines in terms of backfilling of the mines. Also, ash has been exported, given that it's been used in building some of infrastructure abroad, and we've seen that some of that the ash products have been growing in terms of the export. Earlier on, I've mentioned the wastewater treatment works, where we have the generation of the sewage sludge. Through anaerobic digester biogas, we have opportunity to be able to use those wastewater treatment works, the organic waste from the sewage, to be able to generate energy, biogas from that, as well as other technologies, fluidized bed reactors, thermal treatment, also making sure that we divert sewage sludge away from landfill. The fifth initiative relates to ensuring that the meat waste from the abattoirs, we are able to also make use that as part of biogas generation as well. We have also worked on packaging design guidelines, given that most of the products that are on the market, they come in some sort of packaging. We needed to ensure that we influence the design of this packaging products to be able to not have challenges at the end of life of this packaging products. The 15th initiative relates to refuse-derived fuel, and mainly the waste stream of interest in this case, adsorbent hygiene products, a typical example being that of disposable nappies, given that it's also a product made from plastics as well. It's high in caloric value, and hence, if collected, then they could be able to feed this refuse-derived fuel plants as a source of energy. On effective and sustainable waste services, electrical and electronic waste, making sure that we are able to collect. Currently, we do have the extended producer responsibility schemes that are targeting this e-waste, and we are able to see increased collection as part of the scheme. We also include as that the 7th initiative. It relates to ICT legacy volumes coming from government institutions. It's critical that at a household level, we start seeing the separation of waste at source. And in this case, the priority is on the 8 metros, given that in these metropolitan areas, the waste generation volumes are high, and for prioritization, we needed to ensure that we work with the municipalities such that the aim is to get 50% of households municipalities applying an approach of separation of waste at source. The 9th one, it's critical that we have infrastructure, waste infrastructure, and in this case, we are targeting material recovery facilities as well as plastic pelletization plants in order to ensure that we have sufficient infrastructure to manage the waste and also the recycling of the specific materials. The 10th one relates to construction and demolition waste, and it's about ensuring that we are able to produce building aggregates from this construction and demolition waste. 14th one relates to the paper and packaging, especially given that we had put up the industry producer responsibility plans, and they are currently under implementation, EPR for all the packaging related waste streams. Compliance and enforcement pillar, it's the emphasis there is on increasing awareness and also skilling, raising the capacity. We've seen that as it relates especially to organic waste, we needed to work with agricultural stakeholders to also minimize the food loss that is part of that value chain. Under this pillar, we are also having the 20th initiative, which is mainly on a national awareness campaign. And this campaign we are running also, we've mainstreamed it as part of our programs in the department linked to the working on waste. And under that program, we have the Good Green Deeds program. On the chemicals part, we are working with the informal sector. We do have reclamation of refrigerant gases as part of ensuring that they are not released to the environment. We also worked with the Department of Health, ensuring that the paints that used to contain lead, a heavy metal, which is problematic to the health and the environment, to make sure that it is banned.
It's not.
Please hold on.
On Thursday.
Minister?
I don't know why you agreed to that. Hold on.
Minister Chrissy?
My apologies.
I'm sure there's a better way of communicating with Rose. We don't want to hear the detail. Please proceed, DDG.
On the chemicals side, we are also working, we had some of the stockpiles of some of the problematic chemicals, and we are working especially with our enforcement team, some of the clearing of that, one of which is within the KZ area linked to mercury, and we are facilitating a cleanup as part of our enforcement efforts to prevent pollution. Next slide. In terms of the work that we are doing to minimize waste, we are increasing reuse, recycling, recovery. Next slide. I will just talk basically in terms of the work that we are doing. We have been working with the South African Coal Ash Association, given that they are taking the lead as industry experts. We have made use of the waste exclusions regulations, working with the industry, and in this case, Eskom and Sasol and SAPI, given that they are generating some of the ash and working with some of the SMMEs I've mentioned earlier on in terms of alternate building materials. We've also are working with the University of Pretoria. I've talked about research and development and AgriMintech to ensure that the research we are working in the Emalahleni area in Mpumalanga, given that the application of ash to in the agricultural sector, it's also assisting with regard to diverting ash away from landfill. The export of ash needs supporting infrastructure, and that is the reason why we are working with Transnet in terms of ensuring that we are able to facilitate a process where the exportation of ash it's one of the avenues that would contribute to growing the economy. We are working with the agricultural sector to ensure that the abattoirs that generate the meat waste, we can be able to track those and be able to facilitate a process where a business case for that waste going into a biogas generation can be considered. We have worked with provincial environment authorities, given that we have developed and published for implementation the norms and standards for composting We are currently managing this process. Registrations are ongoing, and we were able to remove the administrative burden that was associated with the need for licensing, given that only now norms and standards are applicable, and it makes it easy for small enterprises to go into this area of work. Norms and standards for organic waste treatment covering biogas generation have been published for implementation in April 2022, and we are continuing to monitor the space. We have also worked with Infrastructure South Africa to ensure that we enlist waste infrastructure projects that are under the banner of the National Waste Flagship Program, as a SIP, Strategic Integrated Project number 37, and this particular initiative will enable these projects to leverage of the regulatory and permitting fast-tracking mechanisms that are in place, and it would sort of remove the administrative burden or make it easy in terms of having shorter turnaround times in terms of those that would require licensing requirements. So in terms of the targets in this area, we will continue to support 80 SMMEs and ensure that over 2,000 jobs are also supported as part of our efforts. We are also prioritizing amendments of the waste exclusions regulations, given that we have seen that there could be some efficiency improvements that we can work on. We are continuing to work with the industry and the sector to ensure that there is improved coordination with regard to the work that we are doing in this area. The next slide. Okay, so just to indicate that we have also facilitated approvals of for applications in the waste exclusions area, which covered 22 waste streams, and we have included about 32 beneficial uses. These are critical because the beneficial uses are indicative of the diversion away from landfill that we were able to facilitate. And although a lot has been approved, but there were those that were not approved because of some of the considerations that are mainly considering the environment based on some of the research work that we have undertaken, because some can biodegrade and cause an impact to the groundwater, and hence some of those we have excluded. Next slide. In terms of the waste minimization pillar, here main focus being on the packaging waste streams, as well as the food loss that we're concentrating on, extended producer responsibility schemes, as well as the refuse-derived fuel plants that we need to put in place. We have published for implementation the packaging guideline, which guides the producers of packaging in terms of best practice with regard to product design, to ensure that recycling is increased. We've also put into place, working with the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa, a food waste guideline, and currently we are finalizing a strategy to reduce waste prior to retail, and we are working with the agriculture as a department and the stakeholders, given that that is a specific sector of interest on food waste. On extended producer responsibility regulations, we are currently implementing those regulations. The packaging 2022 was the first year of implementation. We do have 5 producer responsibility organizations, Polyco, Petco, Fiber Circle, Medpack, and the Glass Recycling Company. And in 2022, they have reported interim performance reports, and at the end of March now, their first year annual reports are due, and we will be able to assess how the first year of implementation has gone. With regard to refuse-derived fuel plants, adsorbent hygiene products, these are your disposable nappies and others. We are looking into ensuring that a business case for the establishment of these plants is also fast-tracked, and given that we have seen that that particular waste stream, it is a particular challenge, especially in areas where the communities are not receiving refuse collection services from municipalities. In terms of the targets in this area, we are continuing to monitor the implementation, especially of the paper and packaging EPR, because we are aiming that this paper and packaging will continue to support over 11,000 jobs in the value chain. Most of those jobs are on the collection part of the value chain. And we will be ensuring that we secure funding through EPR fees to also support the implementation. And just to indicate that the table there is just to provide an indication of the volumes of waste that we are aiming to ensure that they are diverted, and this would be grown with our growing efforts. Next slide. Next slide. Going into the effective and sustainable waste services in this area of work, we're working with municipalities, and it's critical that separation of waste at source is put at the forefront. Separation, we have been working with the metros specifically to ensure that there is separation in the bylaws. We've seen that with Joburg, they have started to implement that progressively, introducing some of the wards that would be introducing separate collection. And with that collection, because of the value chain, the transportation and supporting separate collection, it's one area wherein the waste economy is aiming to ensure that there is growth, SMMEs that have been put forward that could support that part. And also the sorting area, talking to material recovery facilities as well as transfer stations in terms of the number of SMMEs that can be running the transfer stations and the material recovery facilities. And from that part of the collection and sorting, it goes into the respective recycling facilities that are also run by SMMEs. In terms of it's 11.7% of households that are participating in separation of waste at source, with Western Cape leading. And we have looked into the reasons, the different approaches in terms of having curbside collection, not only having just trucks that are coming on different days at various households to collect. We've seen that the curbside collection, the drop-off points are the ones that are also contributing to Western Cape having a higher percentage on separation of waste at source. Next slide. So with regard to what the achievements that we are seeing in this pillar of effective and sustainable waste services, the extended producer responsibility, moving from the previous section 28 into this EPR schemes, we are seeing that a lot of producers are registered and they are also contributing the EPR fees that enable the various PROs to able to run programs for effective collection. We have seen a number of producers across the different material streams that have come forward to register. We've also worked with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition in terms of their Black Industrialist program, focusing on electrical and electronic equipment, supporting some of the SMMEs. We are working with the provincial environment authorities in terms of the integrated waste management plans, and to ensure that we monitor and those IWMPs also
there's no sound, or is it on my side only?
some of this waste is mainly generated by government institutions in terms of the nature of the work. So in this area, we will continue to support 18 SMMEs and also the various jobs across the value chain of the electrical and electronic equipment. Next slide. Also, in this area of work, we are continuing to, we have historically, as part of the current cycle of the Recycling Enterprise Support Program, included 33 material recovery facilities for support, which are based in various municipalities, and those are also run by some of the SMMEs. As part of the working on waste, also continue to ensure that there is support for buyback centers as well as transfer stations. The 8 metros that that we are supporting as part of separation of waste at source, we are also strengthening the institutional support linked to the bylaws, ensuring that their authority status and enforcement status of bylaws is also enhanced. We are working on that. Local government support, working using the district development delivery model to ensure that under the support we are able to support the districts through the human resource capacity that is based at each district as part of the structure of the department. We've also facilitated a process of support. It's not necessarily for all the municipalities, but those that have a dire need, wherein we were able to avail yellow fleet support and increase awareness in those areas. So in terms of the targets, we will continue to support material recovery, facilities development, as well as transfer station through leveraging the support coming from the producers, making use of the extended producer responsibility support. Next slide. So the Next 3 slides is just to give an indication of some of the municipalities that have benefited from the fleet support through availing compactor trucks where relevant, as well as TLBs and front end loader to support especially the waste services delivery as part of the National Waste Management Strategy support. The next slide. So members can see a number of municipalities where in at least we were able to support. Next slide. Okay, I think the details are there. We can move to the next slide. Going into the chemicals management area, in terms of our achievements on the next slide, we were able to work with the Department of Health with regard to the publication of regulations that are restricting the lead levels in paints, given the impact that the environmental health impacts of lead in paints. So this is one area that we had worked very closely with Department of Health. We've also ensured that there is equipment that assists, especially the environmental health practitioners that are stationed at the various ports of entry, such that they are able to test some of these paints that are being imported into the country. So it's a joint effort from both departments. We are also through our enforcement branch working with the companies that are liable for some of the mercury that needs to be cleaned up, and the progress is on track with regard to that cleanup in KZN. We are also working with the Department of Labor to ensure that the training of the refrigerant gas technicians is also on track in terms of the handling of those, such that they are not impacting on the environment. The feasibility study on banning of the disposable cylinders is also being undertaken. So in this area, we will continue to support the informal technicians through upskilling and the training. And we also continue to work with the Department of Health in terms of capacitating the environmental health practitioners that are stationed at the various ports of entry. The next slide. With regard to compliance and enforcement, as well as the awareness, we have worked through this current cycle of the Recycling Enterprise Support Program to support 32 previously disadvantaged SMMEs that are involved in the value chain of waste recycling and beneficiation. We are also working with SANParks, specifically for the Kruger National Park, to support the SMMEs in the area, especially on waste recycling. We are working also with the National Cleanup Production Center as part of industrial symbiosis to cover the 9 provinces, where in some of the enterprises that are able to take waste as an input into the manufacturing of their products, they are supported. And we are also leveraging some of the development finance institutions funding that can be availed to waste enterprises. So with that work, we are growing the regions in terms of industrial symbiosis. We will be working closely with the DTIC as well as CSIR together with NCPC on those initiatives. Next slide. Just to indicate that compliance and enforcement, there have been a number of compliance investigations that have been done across the country. Given that it's a concurrent mandate on this slide, mainly it's the work that is done by the National Department covering various waste streams and the type of facilities across the country wherein some of these blitz activities have been done. Or on the achievements, you can see that storage, treatment, recovery, recycling, and disposal facilities have been targeted. But also on the right-hand side below, some of the enforcement cases that together the department and the provincial environment authorities that are pursuing a number of admin enforcement actions that have underway, those that were done in 21-22, some of the criminal dockets that have been handed over to the NPA, given that it's critical that we are able to enforce the culture of compliance. So this work will be continuing to ensure that we are able to protect the environment. Next slide. So we will be working with environmental programs through the Working on Waste as well as the Good Green Deeds program to ensure that we are able to raise awareness and ensure that educational activities are targeted. We are working with schools and broader communities to ensure that we raise awareness, especially on the impacts of pollution. And a number of schools have been targeted by the programs. We will ensure that this is also mainstreamed as part of the municipal cleaning program that is currently being implemented across all the districts. So this is a continuing program that we will be rolling out across the country. Next slide. As part of recycling support program, the call that was made in 2022, we are continuing to support this new and emerging enterprises, and the objective is aligned to Operation Pakisa Waste Economy in terms of ensuring that Initiative 19, there is better coordination of SMME development. We are also working with the Department of Small Business Development, CIFA and CEDA entities to ensure that these enterprises, the 32 of them, they also can leverage support from the Small Business Department. The jobs that are linked to these 32 enterprises, we're talking over 1,000 direct jobs that would be supported as part of this program. Next slide. So in conclusion, the Yellow Fleet Support Program that we have been implementing as part of ensuring that we protect the environment from the impacts associated with waste management. In this case, we will be prioritizing landfill compliance in order to ensure that we improve on the landfill management. Also associated with municipal solid waste, we will be working with the extended producer responsibility schemes to ensure that the support for product redesign for the products that are prioritized for EPR, we are able to support them. And we will also be continuing to work together with the Small Business Department as well as Public Works and Infrastructure to leverage the support of the development finance institutions, especially given that we do have EPR schemes that are currently operational, and to improve coordination with those. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. With your permission, can we go back to the presentation by Dr. Fikizolo?
Chairperson?
Yeah, I thought I should not interject, DG. I thought you were going to call all of the presenters as they to follow one another.
Yes, Chairperson. We're trying to get hold of Fikizolo. He is on the line, but maybe the connection is a bit of a challenge. We can go to the biodiversity one, Chairperson, so that DDG biodiversity can be in a position to take the committee through.
Can we also agree to put Dr. Fikizolo last, so that he drives out of that place and get a better connectivity? We don't have to call him perpetually.
Chairperson, can we not deal with interrogating the previous presentation first before we go on to the next one?
I did not hear that, Honorable Paulsen.
Can we not interrogate the previous presentation first before we go on to the next one?
Oh, well, I will leave that to the committee. There was a proposal at the beginning that we should take it because it's one document. But if the committee has changed its mind, it's still fine with me.
Chairperson, it's one document, but it's very different issues that we're dealing with.
I'm with you. I'm with you. If that is the view of the collective, let's then engage DDG Moseneke. Honorable Paulsen, you will be the first. Can I note hands, honorable members? Honorable Weber, Honorable Singh, in that order. Honorable Paulsen.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And Chairperson, you know, there's the department is not being entirely honest here. There's South Africa is a rubbish dump. We can see it wherever we go, except in the more affluent areas. Now, this past weekend, Chairperson, the Economic Freedom Fighters launched its Andristatani cleanup campaign. Now, you will recall in 2011, Andristatani was protesting due to the lack of services in his community, which was a poor community. And this past weekend, the EFF launched the Andristatani cleanup campaign, because typically poorer areas are not serviced by municipalities. And so we launched the cleanup campaign in Ward 32, Sebokeng in Gauteng. And it was quite a substantial program. The Commander-in-Chief led the program, the Secretary General of the EFF and other members of the EFF Central Command team were present as well. So obviously the National Environmental Management Waste Act 59 of 2008 is the responsibility of this department. We are the custodians, and the minister itself is a custodian of these acts. And that act, section 9(1) of that act says, a municipality must exercise its executive authority to deliver waste management services, which includes waste removal, waste storage, and waste disposal services. Now, it says it must exercise its executive authority to deliver. And when it says deliver, it does not mean deliver for affluent areas only. This department has failed to make sure that municipalities implement this particular act. So I want to know, going forward, what evidence would we have that this department is doing its job by making sure that municipalities implement a basic law that's been around since 2008 to keep our environments clean? Over and above this, because, you know, even with the recycling, the presenters said that the Western Cape is doing better, but even in the Western Cape, once again, it's in poorer communities that we are not receiving this particular service. That service is being received in the more affluent areas. Chairperson, we were all present in Bokmakeri, in Cape Town, cleaning up a sewer. So I think the problem here is twofold. Number one, there's a lack of services to poorer communities. So how will this department make sure that municipalities service all communities? Number one, right? And I think we should start getting these municipalities in here, like the Johannesburg Metro, like the city of Cape Town, and ask them what is stopping them from ensuring that poorer communities are also clean. Secondly, Chairperson, South Africa's got a very low record of waste recycling. Internationally, even poorer countries, third world countries, are recycling up to 75% of its waste. In South Africa, we're not even reaching 30%. So, and we've been hearing the story about the wonderful waste recycling initiatives, but there is no impact. The minister herself led a cleanup campaign. Okay, not something as on the large scale as the DFFE, but I'm thinking, you know, it's very noble for us all to go out and participate in cleaning up the environment. But we have to ask ourselves the question, who's not doing their job? And why are people still being held in their positions if they are not doing the work? Number one, the department is not making sure that these laws are enforced in the municipality. Nobody gets held accountable for that failure. Number two, there are municipalities that are failing in cleaning up the environment. There's no accountability. This is a character of South Africa. Things fail and they fall apart and nobody gets held accountable. So how can we expect anything different from this department to ensure that things change? It's just getting worse. So in terms of making sure that the act is implemented in all municipalities for everyone, to make sure that we improve our recycling capabilities and having a cleaner environment. And my third question, Chairperson, what sort of money is being budgeted for recycling and recycling facilities? And what role is this department playing to ensure that recycling facilities are rolled out across municipalities? This is ideally where these new jobs could come through and getting people employed. We've seen one fairly decent recycling facility last year. But really the amount of dirt that we have landing up on landfalls, landing up in waterways, shows us that we are losing this fight against litter pollution. So what is going to be done differently to ensure that this changes? And, you know, surely it's so bad, I would hang my head in shame. If I'm responsible for a department that's supposed to implement and to ensure that a particular law is adhered to, and there's just no adherence, and I'm still in my job, surely, you know, I mean, I know that we don't have a president that can hold his ministers to account. But surely the minister can hold them, make sure that members of their department do their work. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Paulsen. Honorable Weber.
Thank you, Chair. Am I clear? Can you hear me?
Clear.
Yes, thank you.
Very clear.
Okay. I think firstly, I want to thank the department. I know in 2019, where we started with waste, there was basically nothing. And I actually had a warm feeling when I see the amount of work they have put in there. I realized there's still a lot more to do and everything doesn't work out the way it does. But I do have a better picture of where we're going and what is planning and how it is going. So in by saying that, I heard what Mr. Paulsen said, and my questions were similar but different. In the understanding that the provincial, local, and nationals are independent spheres from one another, we make the laws, and as I look at these things, it is incredibly important that the laws are enforced and there's compliance to it. I do not think we are the enforcement, but how can we ensure that our municipalities are actually adhering to it? And I know it's not our responsibilities, the councillors of all parties, and then who do you go to if these laws are not enforced? Is it the SAPS? Who is it that the councillors must report to when these things are not happening? Enforcement is a major problem, and with waste management, it's really important. I wanted to ask when Ms. Musekeni spoke about the 3 pillars. My first question was, and this is information for myself, does acid mine drainage fall under one of these pillars? I couldn't myself figure out. I thought it might be pillar 2 or 1. And does acid mine drainage waste fall under DFFE? Also part of that is our wash plants. Their waste when they have dams, and that waste of clay and coal breaks and it goes into the environment. Does that waste or waste management of that fall under DFFE? That will be important. And if it does, and which of the 3 pillars it will fall and what we will do. And then I will just jump ahead. It was quite heartwarming to see that we can use as to help with acid mine drainage, although I would like that that doesn't go into our freshwater ways. Then secondly, we speak about plastic, but disposable diapers to me is a serious problem, and I know the minister and the department is seriously working on the diaper issue. But also, under which pillar does it fall? Does it just fall under normal waste with plastic? Because there is a serious waste issue regarding the diapers into our fresh waterways, and that is a big contribution to our problems that we have in our rivers and dams. The compliance issue, again, is a problem, because I do think we're on the right track and we make good contributions. And the example I want to use, which has nothing to do with waste, is the tree planting that the minister said we're going to plant 1 million trees, whatever. So I know trees are going to the municipalities and a certain amount per year, and then it's given to the councillors to plant. But then some councillors have to buy it, or people have to buy it, and that is not the idea of it. Again, it's not the enforcement of the DFFE, but then the question is who is in charge of that. And if you have feedback from municipalities to provinces, to the department on waste issues as it is going. The one issue that we had here, which was important, was, and I think Ms. McKenny did address it, and that was when you spoke about the norms and standards for composting. And the norms and standards was should have started being implemented since 1 April 2022. Does the department know how which provinces have started with it, and how far are they with implementing that? And if not, what can we do to encourage them to start and to do it? I think it goes with all our plans that we have for waste. I do want to compliment them to bring the EPW workers in and creating jobs. It would be nice to see a budget going with that. The question that I have, you talk about recycling enterprises support program, which is a great initiative. But if the municipalities were implementing recycling and ensure it is happening in the municipality, and by law it should be enforced, we should not have something like this. So I understand it, and I'm not shutting it down. But again, we cannot keep on starting other programs just because municipalities are not doing their work and they're not compliant or enforced. So that is a major problem. And although we put enforcement into our policies, someone must actually make sure it is enforced. And again, it's not our authority, but then who and how do we, because in the end, it comes back to DFFE, how do we make sure this is happening? And that enforcement is a problem. And then who needs to be followed up on that? And what is that process? Because in the end, the DFFE needs to stand in for it because no one is doing it, but the law is there and it's done. And then the last question I want is tires. Again, under which pillar does tires fall? I know tire waste is a serious problem. I've heard actually over the weekend someone talking about there is a system where you can burn tires where it doesn't do air pollution and you get some oil from it, and that can be used for energy and things like that. I don't know if the minister knows about it. It was new to me. Maybe you know about it, you're working on it. I would like to have seen a little bit more on tire waste and diaper waste, as it is, to me, one of our major contributory factors and problems that I can't see the solution to very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Weber. Honorable Singh.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and greetings to the Minister, Deputy Minister, and all the officials that are on board. I must say this was a great presentation. Absolutely fantastic thinking, good ideas, a good way forward. But I think what we need to be convinced on, Honorable Chairperson and Minister, is on implementation. So my first question would be, when we talk about Pagisa and Operation Pagisa, we had a presentation before by the President's office, somebody from the President's office. How do they fit into all of this? And why are these programs presented to us under Pagisa and not, normal run-of-the-mill departmental functions? So that's the one. The other questions, I think Honorable Paulson and Weber have done extremely well, but just to emphasize the issue of funding for these programs. Great programs, what about funding? Then, Chairperson, we talk about waste, and we talk about working with municipalities. Now, we know what happened in Durban recently. It lost half of its tourists that normally come to the beach in our holiday period. And because of sewer plants not functioning effectively, not being maintained, load shedding having an impact, to what extent is the national department working with these municipalities that have sewer plants and things like that to ensure that there is some kind of a master plan that these pump stations work? We can't have sewer flowing into the sea to the extent that it is. So I think Honorable Paulson also raised the issue of rural areas. In the presentation, I noted that there was interaction with, if I can remember, 8 metros that you spoke about. What happens to the rural municipalities? What happened to the district municipalities? What kind of programs are there with them so that we can talk about? Because, the national flower of the country is still plastic bags. Wherever you go, I mean, and like Honorable Paulson says, when we went on site visits to some areas, you find rubbish. And why do you find rubbish? Is because the people in those areas don't have adequate skips or bins where they can put their dirt in. So what do? You can't leave it in your house, you just throw it outside. So can there be not some broad thinking and assistance to municipalities to provide skips and bins and the basic things so that waste doesn't just get thrown on the streets? And my last question for now is, and I'm just throwing this in, Honorable Minister and Chairperson, you can rule me out of order, but I think at some stage we will have to talk about the declaration of the national state of disaster and what impact and what kind of studies are being done by our department to see where the floods did have disastrous effects. And what are we going to do? What is the department going to be doing? Like in our game parks, etc. There could have been a lot of damage. I know this is not related directly to waste, but you look at St. Lucia, the farmers there, the farms have been flooded and damaged. So I'm just saying as an aside, could the department also, maybe in our next meeting or sometime, just tell us how are they responding to the declaration of the national state of disaster? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, not out of order, Honorable Singh. Honorable Mbata.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, DDG, for a wonderful presentation. I think there's a lot of progress on your unit, on what you have done, based on the report. But I have some few questions. I'm happy that Operation Pagisa is now being implemented fully, not actually fully, but at a level that there's progress, and there's also involvement of different departments, different stakeholders. I am very much happy on that. I think we need to focus on the separation of at source. Waste is very is very broad, and it's being produced on daily basis. I think we must have to look at how best can we deal with the separation of source at source. That's where we are going to make sure that the waste is diverted from the landfill side. The waste is not mixed, but the waste is collected per category. As the national department, including the DG, yourself, the DG, and the minister and the DM, I think we must also look at the issue of coming with a law, or not a bylaw, a policy that will deal on issues of how waste should be collected. Because the problem comes in when the waste is collected once a week. If you benchmark with other countries, waste is collected from Monday to Friday per category. So here we haven't reached the stage where we have separated our waste at source to reduce all our problems. I think that's where it lies. That's where we get also the waste pickers that comes to the households and take out whatever they want in the dustbins, and then thereafter they go and sit somewhere else, and they end up polluting because they will take whatever they want, then they leave what they don't want in that spot. Then it also increased the issue of illegal dumping. I'm not saying that our own communities are the culprits. They are the culprits because they know that they can't dispose waste anyhow. Then I would say that we need to emphasize more on awareness, especially on the communities. I know you, according to the spheres of government, the implementers are the municipalities. There's the national, there's the province, there's the municipalities, but our municipalities are failing us. For example, I'm just going to say that, remember, now in Tshwane, they are saying that they are not going to collect or clean up any illegal dumping. And I just want to say to Paulson, we have started to clean our own locations as the ANC. We started in the Atteridgeville, which was the cleanest township. But because we could see that it was deteriorating, and when we spoke to the city, they said they don't have funds. Then we took up the initiative to clean our own township. It's an ongoing process in all our township, especially the Atteridgeville has started, Mamelodi has followed, and the Gauteng government have taken an initiative that they are now cleaning all the township. They started in I think it's West Rand or somewhere. They have started in Ekurhuleni also, there where they all volunteers, including the MMCs, they go there and clean. So which is assisting, but it's not assisting the whole the municipality when the municipality is not taking part in assisting us. Then again, I'm still going to say that the issue of the bulk containers, I seriously don't want them, because that's where we get problems, where small young people or short people can't reach the bulk container. Then you find that there's waste around the bulk area. But my question is that can we look at the strategy or the policy to say how best can we deal with the issue of separation at source, so that it will assist us, all these piles and piles of waste. And also look at that one of separation at source. It must include the collection of waste per category from Monday to Friday, not once in a week. Then it will assist us. And also, I would also request that the department look at the municipality through the GDART, the provinces, on the issue where, especially GDART, on the issue where the municipality says they are not going to clean any illegal dumping. I am happy with the issue of the ash on the initiatives on the ash, but I want to get assurance from you that you know that usually that ash is flying ash, which is toxic. Let me get the assurance that that ash is being treated before it's being reused as bricks or road construction, because it's highly toxic if it's not treated. I am also happy that we are now using the construction waste, because before the construction waste wasn't touched that much, but I can hear now it's being touched very well. But I will request that also on the, I know Public Works, National Public Works, dealing with lots of construction projects. And then in provinces is the Department of Infrastructure. So, and human settlement. I think we need to try also and look at, request that the National Department should also look at how best can they come up with a policy that will look at the inclusion of the management of the construction waste on the RFQ document. In fact, not only the RFQ for waste, for construction, I think most of the RFQs, they must have a portion, it must be compulsory that they must have a portion there on the RFQ on how that person, that contractor or the service provider is going to deal with waste, and must produce the certificate from the landfill site. If it's a waste, it must go to the landfill site. If it's e-waste, we must have a two certificate. The one that they deal with when they dismantle the e-waste products, and the one of the final disposal of the e-waste products. Then I have a question also on the, I'm happy to talk about 33 MRFs. I know it's in Tshwane, but please assist us. There's this MRF, which is at the entrance of Archfield. There's a fruitless expenditure because there was a lot of money invested there, but it's not working. There's trucks that are deteriorating in that facilities and everything. And it's just, and now it's going to become a place where thugs will do their own criminal activities. Can you assist us on that? And also, I would also request the National Department to also look at the issue of the environmental management inspector, because most of the municipalities don't have that officers. Can we make sure that we have one, not one, 2 or 3, but through your lobbying with the municipalities, because it gives us a problem. As I'm sitting here, I have a problem of cable theft, which comes here twice a week or 3 times a week. We are being the most affected because I had a meeting with the directors. They said from the environment side, they said they don't have an EMR. They have the EMI. They have just ordinary guys who goes there, but they don't have powers to check these illegal recycling companies, which are the ones that are taking all these cables that are being theft directly to them, because they are not registered. There are no monitoring on that issue. it is a serious crisis that needs to be taken. You know, we have load shedding. We can't have load shedding. Once it's load shedding, then we have a cable theft. It's a really serious crisis. Can that be looked at not only in Tshwane, but in each and every municipality, so that it will minimize the issue of cable theft? Even the issue also that those people, they call themselves waste pickers also. They when they are collecting their recyclables, they also remove metal things that they can go and sell to these illegal recyclers. It will reduce the criminality of this, and the police can be able to assist if they have an officer who will deal with that. I just want to know the issue of the abattoirs and the Department of Agriculture. Because they are the one who are the main producers. It's not only Department of Agriculture, by the way. Correctional services, they also slaughter their own animals for meat in the, not animals, the cows, the cows and so forth for the correctional services. They must also be included, DDG. But we must have a strategy on how to monitor and manage such activities. Because if once they are not managed and monitored, the departments might do their own. But I'm happy that even the upcoming farmers, I've noticed that they are somehow they are also using the recycling of the tins, because they use the tins to bring to use in their crops, and also the bones. So that means also we have a task that we need to do a training and awareness to the up and coming farmers, not only the up and coming farmers, the community, because remember the Department of Agriculture, they do also have the homestead backyard gardens. So we must include that training must be part and parcel of the agriculture, so that the communities can recycle and use their waste towards their own garden, and also to produce their own manure. Even when they are doing their tree cutting and the food waste from their homes, they must also start to create and produce their own manure. But in short, this is a very progressive report, and I'm really happy, and thumbs up to the department. I know we started a long time ago with the Pakisa, but we have moved a lot, and I just want to say, I will avail, once my dissertation has been approved by the Northwest University, because it's on e-waste and in DPWI national departments, I will avail that to you, DDG, so that you can also utilize it to us. But I want to say also, I want to congratulate the Gauteng government on e-government. They are doing a lot on the issue of e-waste, because they are even going to the taxi ranks and so forth. But I also want to say, when you target the departments, don't only target the ICT. What I've realized is that the one that deals with I forgot the name, the one that deals with immovable and movable assets, they are the ones who have the register of all the electronic waste and the non-electronic waste. And they are the ones in most of the departments, they are the ones who deals on who comes and collects the e-waste and so forth, whether they get the proper certificate, but at least there's some form of a correct procedure that is being done by the departments, but also look at the asset department that deals with the assets register, not only the ICT. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Mbata. Honorable Winkler, followed by Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Honorable Winkler.
Fantastic. Okay, so what I would really like to know is what are the trends with regard to the proper management of landfill sites, and what metrics are we using to determine whether these interventions are working? How many landfill sites have been issued with non-compliant?
And a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard this semi flight to Cape Town. On behalf of Captain Olvain Mayor, First Officer Ranesh Briaglo, myself, Eugene, and
Honorable Winkler, you are in a flight.
Okay. You on the
yes, Chair, I have to leave now. Thank you. I've got my other questions on the chat.
Okay, Honorable Winkler is on a flight. It sounds like an international flight. We will pass her. She has deposited a message that she's about to leave now on the chat group. Let's go to Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe let me join other honorables on accepting the report as a work in progress. It's a good report. It's able now to give us more clarity to other things that's supposed to be done. But there are a few points that I just want to raise. One, I think the report, it covers the question of waste management that we're doing good there, in particular on the domestic waste and industrial waste. I'll request to say that now probably to be better again to speak about the waste treatment. Because if we're able to manage waste, then the treatment of waste is not moving properly, in particular on the waste dump site or landfill. Therefore, we should be able to say what best that we can be able to increase the question of the cleaning the dumping site where the waste is. So that's the first point that I want to raise. Another point, Chair, are the nappies. Really, these nappies are creating a lot of problems or headache. I know some of us were using these cloth nappies, they were very good, but now because of environment or developing of the countries and all that, therefore we're now using these nappies. What best that we can be able to do in order to treat this kind of nappies? If now we are not able to treat them, what best that we can be able to manage this kind of nappies? You take them to the waste, you take them only, everywhere. It's not able to, it's not able now to be able to be done. Therefore, I think that probably the department must be able to have some strategy in the way of the question of dealing about these nappies, because all over the country, everybody is talking about these nappies. The third point is a question of education. You know, the question of separation of waste is not happening properly even in township. I think we must be able to have a strategy of education on that one. How we can be able to make sure people in the townships, they can be able to understand the benefit of separating waste. Because I agree with other honorables when they talk about this big dustbin and all that, they are not going to be able to help us at all. But they'll try to create other thing else. But let's see what best that we can be able to do to teach our own people in township and other areas to separate waste and the question of benefits. The last one is a question of bylaws. This illegal dumping that is taking place is because that now the bylaws are not being enforced. But if at all we can be able to enforce the bylaws, then people are able to face penalties. Then we name and shame
it will reduce the question of dumping, this illegal dumping. Because at the present moment, everybody just do whatever they want to be able to do. They know that there will be no consequences that will come to them. That is why now they're starting to do some of these things. I think these are the 4 areas that I think in fact the department must be able to improve on it and make sure what do we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dlamini. We need to be very careful of time, honorable members. I'm told that the presentation is rather very long. I'm not in any way trying to avoid questions, but we need to also be very clear on the kind of questions we ask. There are questions, we appreciate that they are intertwined and interrelated. But there are questions that fall squarely within the domain of the Department of Agriculture, for instance. And we can't accept the Department of Environment to respond to that. If push comes to shove, we'll have to convene the Department of Agriculture so that they are able to respond to some of the issues. Just on my part, DDG, very quickly, I would like to know on the Operation Pakisa programs, are they independently evaluated for their effectiveness in meeting their objectives? Besides this kind of parliamentary reviews that we do, as it relates to the role of the besides the kind of reviews that we do as a PC. If yes, at what intervals are these programs designed to be evaluated? I'm sure it will help us if the department can share some of the monitoring and evaluation reports with us to assist us in getting a better understanding of these workings on operations. Is it the strategy that leads to the program, or how does the integration between the broader operation package, is there a strategy rather, yeah, that leads to this program, or how does the integration between the broader operation Pakisa program and the National Biodiversity Economic Strategy takes place? Thank you very much. Minister, I see your camera is on.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me have a first bite at answering the questions. And I think where we need to start is the relationship between the Pakisa programs and the departmental APP, which is really the question that you have raised. And I think that it's important that honourable members understand that there's no separate funding available for the Pakisas. They are essentially part of the annual performance plans of the department. And I think with the waste Pakisa in particular, you can't have an effective recycling industry unless you have an effective waste management system in the country. And I think the questions and the comments that many colleagues have raised in this portfolio committee are spot on. So in order to have effective recycling, you have to have household waste collection, and you have to have household waste separation. What we know is that between 30 and 40% of households in our country, particularly households in informal settlements, do not have regular waste collection. So it's important that colleagues understand that dumping occurs because people don't have viable solutions for household waste. It's not a failure of the regulatory environment. it's a failure of the waste collection responsibility of municipalities. So that's where we need to start. Honorable Mbata is correct that ideally you need household waste separation, but only the cities of Johannesburg and Cape Town have had waste separation, household waste separation. And there it's just paper, plastic, glass in the recycling, and tins in the recycling bin, and all other forms of waste in the general waste bin. And to the extent that Cape Town does better with regard to recycling, it's because there has been better rollout of household waste separation. But honourable members who have raised the point that we still don't have adequate waste collection in any of our metros in the informal settlements would be entirely correct. And that's why people dump. We've also had a situation where in a number of other cities, regular weekly waste collection in formal settlements is also sporadic. So in looking at this situation and trying to understand what can we do as a department to correct it, we brought in the revised National Waste Management Strategy in 2019, so that we could make it clear to everybody what is the program to deal with waste in the country. What we've then done through MINMEC is to work with municipalities and also with provincial governments to monitor improvement in household waste collection, to monitor problems with waste vehicles, because obviously you can't collect waste by hand. You have to have compactor trucks where you are cleaning up dump sites, you need TLBs and so on. So monitoring that, and you will see from the presentation that we've given that we are supporting municipalities where we have surplus budget to provide what we call yellow fleet, because often waste is not collected because the yellow fleet either has broken down, has not been repaired, or is non-existent. And then the third area is the area of landfill diversion and landfill management. And again, there are many municipalities that are not compliant, and we've given that information to this committee before. So one of the things we are working with municipalities on is improving the management of landfills. Landfills need, the waste needs to be compacted, it needs to be covered with soil, because otherwise you have the problem of flies. But landfills need to be properly lined so that there's no leachate into the groundwater system and so on and so forth. So there is a problem, as we all know, with the state of performance of our municipalities. And it's very pleasing to hear that the EFF has now joined us in conducting cleanups. You know, they say that it's better late than never. So we're very delighted that you've joined this process, Honourable Paulson. But of course, one of the questions you will soon realize is that it's not a sustainable activity. We can give you chapter and verse of cleanups we have done in dozens of municipalities across the country. But unless you solve the household waste collection problem, you will come back in a couple of weeks and the rubbish will all be on the dump sites once again. Could we do more in terms of community education? Yes, we can. And we do that when we do cleanups. But the reality is that any one of us who doesn't have a way of dealing with our household waste disposal, in the end, we will also engage in illegal dumping. So this is what we are doing. We are working with municipalities. We are working with provincial governments. In the end, the money for waste collection doesn't reside at national or at provincial government level. It resides at municipal level, and it comes from the rates and taxes that people pay in municipalities. So if there is a problem with the collection of revenue in a municipality, that will have a knock-on effect for waste services and all other services. So we are tightening monitoring and evaluation. We have allocated EPWP workers to district and metro municipalities to assist with cleanups. I've already explained how we are providing yellow fleet. We have also changed the Treasury provisions so that money for infrastructure can be spent on the yellow fleet. But unless the municipality is going to reorganize itself and organize itself properly, there are limits to what provincial and national government can do. And I think it's very important to tighten up on accountability of municipalities. I suppose that's why you have councils where honorable members, political parties would be represented, and it's why you have provincial legislatures. And I think that encouraging accountability around waste management is a very important activity that everybody, all political parties need to get involved in, because it's the only way, as honorable members are saying, that we're going to improve the situation. What is important is to answer Honorable Singh's question about what is the role of Infrastructure SA. So the presentation was not the presidency as such, it was Infrastructure SA. And we have been working with Infrastructure SA to put out a call for proposals for the building of compliant landfills and for the management of compliant landfills, because a lot of municipalities are saying to us that this is something that they don't feel equipped to do at this point in time. Of course, one does have to ask the question in the longer term as to whether landfilling is an appropriate activity. And there was a time when the current ruling party was in charge of the city of Johannesburg, when there was a whole policy decision taken to move away from landfilling and to move towards waste incineration, and also obviously promoting recycling as a waste diversion option. Unfortunately, one hasn't seen sustainability with the administrations that have come in subsequently, and one has indeed been posing the question to the metros in Gauteng, what are you planning to do when your existing landfill space runs out? I think it's in about 2027. So I think this is an important question which all levels of government need to be seized with and need to be focusing on. We are trying through Infrastructure SA to look at building more compliant landfills in district and rural municipalities, but also looking at the possibility of alternate forms of waste treatment for the metros. I would just want to say that on the single-use plastics, we've also made presentations to this committee before on this matter. We are part of the International Plastics Pact. We are involved in the negotiations that are going on to reduce plastic pollution. We are working with the Consumer Goods Council to take plastic bags and single-use plastics out of the value chain. And I think in many shops and fast food centers, you would see alternative products now being introduced. And that is part of the work that this department has been very actively involved in. You would know we've also created standards for plastic bags and black bags to have an increasing concentrate of recyclate going forward. Just on the issue of flooding, Member Singh, we did also give a presentation in the past to this committee on how we were involved in the floods in Durban. And you would recall that one of the things that we have to do in relation to flood situations is to facilitate exemptions from EIAs so that bridges, roads, landfills can be repaired as a result of flooding. But you would also be aware that we had a very extensive campaign to support cleanup operations on the beaches in KZN after flooding, because there was almost 250 kilometers of beach that was devastated as a result of those flooding activities. On the question of nappies, nappies are a very complicated product to recycle. We have done some experimental work on it. Part of the difficulty with nappies is that nappies are filled with granules that are moisture absorbing. And those granules are not part of the existing recycling streams. We've done some investigation in whether those granules could be used for water retention purposes in agriculture, and there's been some quite interesting micro studies that have been done. But I think the big problem with nappies is that in a nappy you would have plastic, you would have paper, you would have these granules, and of course you would have the problem of organic waste. And it's very complicated to recycle a product like that. I think in the short term, what's more important is to improve household waste collection so that people don't have to dump their nappies in situations that are inappropriate. Let me hand over to the department just to deal with some of the technical questions that have been posed by members.